The Start Your Own Business podcast. Hear inspiring startup stories and get reliable expert advice on how to start your business and get off to the best possible start. Brought to you by Startup Donut, helping small businesses succeed.
Hi there, thanks for joining us and welcome to the Start Your Own Business podcast. My name's Fiona and I'm your host. You're listening to episode 2 of our special 4-part mini-series brought to you in association with Tax Assist Accountants, all about making tax digital for income tax. If you're a sole trader or small private landlord, are you ready for making tax digital for income tax? Have you taken any steps to get ready? Whether you've heard of it or not, making tax digital for income tax will drastically change how sole traders and small private landlords must keep financial records of their income and expenses and how they report that information to HMRC. The first phase of introduction will get underway on the 6th of April 2026, so there's not long to go now. You might need to start using accounting software for the first time to keep your financial records, and making tax digital will mean that you must become familiar with a brand new way of reporting your income and expenses to HMRC. Very few will be granted exemption from making tax digital for income tax. It's not optional. So, how can you start to get ready now for making tax digital for income tax? Here to tell us is Certified Chartered Accountant Samantha Skyring of Tax Assist Accountants, the sponsor of this podcast. But before we meet Samantha, let's find out a bit more about how Tax Assist Accountants can help you.
Are you a sole trader or landlord earning over £50,000 a year? Then making tax digital for income tax is heading your way, and the deadline is the 6th of April 2026. Don't wait until the last minute. Tax Assist Accountants are here to help you get ahead and stay compliant. With local offices across the UK, they offer face-to-face personalised support to guide you through the entire process, whether it's understanding what MTD means for you, getting your finances in order, or choosing the right tools. With MTD compliant software to digitise your records and make submissions simple, you'll be fully set up and ready. Even better, Tax Assist has a range of packages designed to suit different needs and budgets, so you'll only pay for the support that's right for you. It's expert help made local and personal.
It's now time to meet our guest, Chartered Accountant Samantha Skyring of Tax Assist Accountants. Hi there, Samantha. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to join you.
So in the introduction to today's episode, I explained how once making tax digital for income tax comes into force, sole traders and small private landlords will have to change how they keep their financial records and how they report that information to HMRC. So I guess my first question is, how easy is it going to be for sole traders and landlords to comply with the new requirements?
Yeah, so great question. To be honest, it actually depends on those individuals and businesses concerned, based on, how they all currently doing things. So if obviously they're already using some kind of digital bookkeeping product, then the transition's going to actually be a piece of cake, quite frankly, because they're doing a lot of that difficult transition stuff already. Now, compared to those that maybe are using spreadsheets as an example, now obviously we would encourage those individuals to transition onto a digital bookkeeping package for multiple advantages and benefits to them, because obviously not only will it be easier to comply with MTD and these new rules, it will actually hopefully, once they're up and running, help them pull information about their businesses and how they're performing. So actually it could benefit them as well to transition on this type of product. Now, don't get me wrong, if they really want to stick to spreadsheets, there's a couple of easy solutions. There is what we call bridging software out there. A little bit more complicated to use. There's a bit more sort of nitty-gritty, but it does mean that they could still use spreadsheets and then utilise bridging software. But again, the way that we see these rules transitioning over time, because next year is very much phase 1, we all know with HMRC and these plans, it's going to go on and things will evolve. I think they'd have to move later down the line anyway. So it might be easier to really think about it now. And then obviously those clients that are still using what I would refer to as a manual cash book, where they are handwriting everything down, is going to be more of a challenge for them, because obviously they are completely going to have to change the way they do things. So the transition, and I would say the slightly more complicated bit, is around that getting onto some kind of digital platform. The rest of MTD is not too onerous, and we're talking submissions, and all these good bookkeeping products will actually help you and do that for you. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah. You mentioned submissions there. Can you explain a little bit about what that is, please, Samantha?
Yeah, of course. So I always refer to them as quarterly submissions, but they're sometimes called quarterly updates. So there's a couple of phrases out there that HMRC like to use. But in essence, once MTD kicks in from April next year, obviously each quarter, and the quarters, you've got two options. You can either run the quarter on calendar months as an option, so from the 1st of April to the 30th of June, or you can stick with what HMRC calls sort of the default method, is like based off the tax year. So the quarter would begin on the 6th of April to the 5th of July. So slightly different. So it kind of depends when that individual wants to line their quarters up with. I imagine most will do the calendar quarters, because it's a lot easier mentally to think about those lovely month-end dates. And then following that, HMRC give you a month and 7 days. So for the quarter ended June, let's say, so 30th of June, let's stick with the calendar months example, you are going to have until the 7th of August to do your first update or submission, whatever term you prefer to use. Yeah. And then you'll do that 4 times in total over that year. So running from April through to the following end of March. And they are going to be your quarterly submissions, or quarterly updates as we like to call them. And then beyond that, you're going to have to do what we refer to as more of your traditional tax return, your sort of year-end reconciliation. So that's a 5th submission or update, and that's going to be going in the same span that you normally would send a tax return. So that would be due to be submitted by the following 31st of January. So the same time frames that we're used to with self-assessment tax returns at the moment.
Yeah. So in terms of the submissions then, what will people be uploading each quarter? What will that information consist of?
Yeah, of course. So wonderfully, it's not as scary as a lot of people think when they think MTD, I'm submitting digitally to HMRC. They're going to want to look at the ins and outs of all my bookkeeping. I'm going to have to show them everything. Wonderfully, you don't. So they're going to be taking what I call sort of category headings worth of content. So wonderfully, if there's 2 categories of individual here. So if you are not VAT registered, okay, then actually HMRC require you to submit even less, and they call it 3 lines worth of data. So you'll have income that gets reported, expenses, profit or loss, depending on what the situation is. That's it. For any business that is VAT registered, they do require a little bit more. So they would want to see income as one, but then they'd want to see sort of breakdowns of categories. So sort of rent, rate, lights and heat gets lumped into one, employee costs will get lumped into one, insurances, motor expenses, just to give you a feel for some of the categories. And again, these would be reflective of what you would have used to have been doing on a standard self-assessment tax return. Yeah. So the category shouldn't be too dissimilar to what you've experienced.
So that sounds, on the face of it, quite simple, really. For anyone who's out there who's sort of panic mode, making tax digital, I don't know what that is, yikes, what have I got to do? It sounds from what you've said that actually it's quite simple, and that there will be definite benefits to people for the switch.
Absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's nowhere near as scary as people think. Now, don't get me wrong, any change is daunting. We're changing habits that we've probably built up over a lifetime, because it is a big change. I will grant you that. But again, it's why it's so important to act now. Don't burden yourself stressing when, leaving everything till next year. If you start transitioning and adopting some of these habits now, before MTD kicks in, when it does kick in, it will be so smooth and so painless, because you'll already be starting to do the things that the bulk of what's going to make up what you're doing next year. It's only the actual physical click of a button submit that's going to be new next year. That's the kind of point that you want to get to. Don't stress yourself out. It's not worth it. And again, if you are really quite anxious about this coming in, us as accountants, we don't want any guys out there stressing about this, and that's why, if you are a little bit anxious about it, you're nervous, you're really not sure, you're feeling like you're reading information and seeing things all over the place, you're not quite sure what it means for you specifically, that's where a good accountant comes in, because they can actually, depending on what service level you want to agree, a good accountant will sit down, they will talk you all through it, make it relevant and bespoke to you, your specific situation, your business, and help you come up with a solution that marries into what your strengths are, what you're capable of doing. Some you might say, do you know what? I don't want to do this at all. Can I just hand everything over to you as my accountant? And your accountant will say, yes, not a problem. We will absolutely do everything for you. Now, obviously, that service is what we call a full service. It's going to be a bit more expensive, because we are literally doing everything for you. Whereas there are lots of options in between. There'll be chances where we as an accountant help you get on a software that works for you and you are comfortable to use, and we will train you on that software. But then you will go away and do elements of your bookkeeping. We will then obviously check in before the quarterly submissions, give you a bit of, sense check, peace of mind that you've done everything you needed to do, and then obviously do any final tweaks before we do that quarterly submission. Obviously that's going to be a slightly cheaper option for you, but because you're obviously doing elements for us. And then obviously the elements where is obviously you still have an accountant maybe to help with the year-end submission when there's more reconciliations and things like that involved, but actually we set you up and get going so that you can do the quarterly submissions, and we are just there at the end of the phone if you've got questions along the way. And obviously that's going to be the cheapest option with an accountant, and then we potentially do the year end. So we can tailor our service to what you need and to your price range as well, and we will offer suggestions along the way. So as much as it is scary, there is always a good accountant out there to help you. So if you are worried about going it alone, reach out to an accountant. Most good ones, and I'm pleased to say Taxis is part of that, do offer a sort of a free initial consultation so that we can sit down with you, work out what you're after, discuss pricing. We're not hiding anything away. We specifically do not do hidden fees or anything like that. No one wants that stress or worry at the end of the day either. So just go and talk to a good local accountant, and hear what they've got to say, and then you can then make an informed decision. Do you want to go it alone, or actually would you prefer one of these solutions where you get some kind of interaction with an accountant?
And with accounting software these days, for anyone who maybe hasn't used accounting software before, once you've set up, say, a client, they will automate a lot of the things that you're doing as you go along, as you invoice them or as the money comes in. It will help you categorize expenses and things like that. So actually, you might find that you need less support once you're up and running with a piece of software and you've had your session with your accountant and learned how to use it properly and all the features and functions that software has.
Absolutely. So, just to give you some examples, you touched on a few there, it refers to, software gets cleverer and cleverer these days as technology. It moves lightning fast, doesn't it? So wonderfully, the software learns. So you can absolutely set up rules and things for day one to set certain expenses. You can say, well, actually, every time I go to the Shell garage, it will be for fuel. So automatically post it to motor expenses. Great. And it will, pick that information up, and you can set what that percentages and things like that to use as well. But equally, even if you just started posting all those shell receipts to motor expenses, the software will automatically learn it and say, well, actually, it will then start prompting you, say, oh, another shell receipt. Shall I pop that to motor expenses for you? And you go, yep. Lovely. And then the other wonderful thing is if you've got a dedicated business bank account, I wouldn't do it unless you've got a dedicated separate bank account just because it gets messy. But if you have, you can link your bank feed up to software and it will pull a lot of that information directly from the bank. So you are making sure you are not missing anything. We all know if we're not careful, receipts can go walkabouts. So having a centralized bank where everything goes through will absolutely make your life so much easier, because the amount of expenses that individuals out there are not claiming, so therefore you're paying too much tax, is eye-watering, quite frankly. So having a centralized system like that is an absolute blessing. And there's even amazing technology out there now that you can snap a receipt on your phone as soon as you get it. So I've literally been at the service station on the M1, and I've got my phone out, I'm snapping that receipt, because then if I lose it doesn't matter, because HMRC, as long as they can see a photograph of that receipt built into the software then with wonderful OCR technology, all this stuff that goes above my head, takes all that core data off, where you are, what you've bought, VAT rates, amounts, everything, and then it automatically can populate your bookkeeping software, which is just life-changing, quite frankly. And again, gives you that peace of mind that you are claiming everything you need to be claiming before you lose that receipt in that pile, or it's fell down the back of the van and this, that and the other. We all know what happens to them. You've spat your gum out in it and then chucked it somewhere. It takes all that pressure off you. So the technology does so much for you. And again, if you are with an accountant, they can help you set up these rules and this functionality for you. And then if I just add in, because I know when I mention about bank feeds and how helpful they are, some people get a little bit nervous because they're like, oh, this is another software linking in with my bank account. The banks would not allow something to happen if it didn't have the right protocols in place to protect your security. So wonderfully, they've set up mechanisms. So even if you're engaged in an accountant, they can't get access to your bank account. Okay, because how you set it up through the software is your bank sends you sort of almost a unique login information separate to your online banking, I will add, that gives you access, so it connects up. Your accountant can then see the information that's on that specific bank, but it doesn't mean they can go into your bank account. They can't do anything. They can't change anything. It just shows the transactions coming into the software. So you're protected by your bank. And then it also does things like sometimes it's every month, but a lot of banks now that allow it every quarter, you might have to re-put in another unique password again, just to be safe and make sure it's not just fully linked up all the time, and potentially something could go a little bit wrong. And the software is obviously also, would set you up password protected. You'd have two-factor authentication, all these steps to protect yourself. So, be rest assured that your banks are working with the software companies to make sure that everything's safe, because I know that can be a worry to people.
Yeah, I guess the way of explaining it that I'm visualising in my head is my husband's self-employed and has been for many, many years. And he was one of those that didn't use accounting software. So we'd turn up at the accountants with a big box of receipts and things. Yes. And you would have to provide your bank statements so that they can check that you're claiming everything. And that's kind of how the linking works, is that the accountant or the software can see the statements, but they don't have any access to the bank. It's just the numbers and the details of the transactions, dates and who it was paid to. So I guess that's how it kind of works. Is that fair enough?
Absolutely, yes. You've hit the nail on the head. That is absolutely spot on. Same mechanisms. We still need to see that information. Yeah. But it doesn't mean we're suddenly going to go away, and do dodgy things in your bank accounts. It's completely safe. It's completely trustworthy. And again, your accountants, we do know we have access to a lot of your sensitive financial data and information. But that's why we ourselves, whenever you sign up with an accountant, you will sign a set of terms and conditions, which works both ways. A lot of people don't realise that. It's obviously making sure you as the client know where you stand, the services you're getting, but it also shows that we have a certain service level and conduct that we have to act when we are looking after your data. We have to comply by the GDPR rules. We have to make sure we are putting everything in place to protect your data as well. So, it does work both ways, and we want to make sure, like you do, that everything is safe, away from dodgy people out there that try and do very dodgy things.
Yes, we're always getting alerts from fake emails from HMRC to, that we're warning people to be wary of.
Yeah, absolutely that.
So it sounds to me, Samantha, as though although there may be a kind of cost to taking on accounting software if you don't already have a package, that most of them are available on a quite low fee, monthly subscription, but that actually in terms of the time savings and the potential to minimise errors, actually you'll probably find yourself better off, especially if you, like you say, you're able to claim all of those things that you sometimes may have missed, those lost receipts in the glove box, or the thing where you forgot to pick up the receipt, or you lost the invoice. So it sounds to me like actually, it's a worthwhile investment having that for a number of reasons.
Absolutely. It's a case of, you're going to find more of the, the pinch point over the next 12 months. Obviously, you're potentially buying a new software. You're figuring out how to get to use it and utilize it to its best. You may start working with an accountant if you're not already. So that's a new relationship dynamic you're trying to figure out. So all of that sort of pain, if you want to call it that, is going to happen sooner, and then as time goes on, like anything, you're going to get used to it. Those costs are going to be part of your business, and again, the software is then going to become part of the day-to-day habits that you are used to. So it just becomes ingrained. You get up and you check your bookkeeping software. Has this filled in? Is that doing that? Is that doing what you'll have done several submissions, this time next year. So, you'll be starting to get to grips with what information is going across, how this is looking. And again, once you are in that process and those habits start to take a grip within you, it will become so much easier to the point where you will absolutely, I can guarantee, look back and go, what was I worried about? Yeah. Okay, so it is going to be a really smooth transition. And like you say, if you work with an accountant or you're doing it by yourself with a bookkeeping product, look at what that bookkeeping tool can do with you. The accountants will help you along the way. But actually, whatever situation or route you decide to take, it might be that route lasts maybe for 1 to 2 years while you're getting your feet under the table, and then you might get later down the line and say, well, actually, maybe I can do it myself. So, maybe my business isn't that complicated. I would always advocate for accountants because we do so much more than just doing the numbers. But obviously, if you're feeling more comfortable doing that side of things, and that's something you could potentially take on and do yourself, and maybe just have an accountant to help guide you in your business as a whole to help your growth and goal aspirations that you want for you and your families and whatever else you've set yourself. So that's what your accountant could do. But obviously that would be potentially a cheaper cost than if the accountant was helping you with all the bookkeeping and the software and everything else as well. So, the service levels and how you're using things will change over time, and you will absolutely get quicker. Okay, that's the key. So time, because in the beginning you're onboarding onto a software, you're getting used to it. We all know training, you're going to make a few mistakes. And I would point out, no mistake is unfixable. All right, don't panic. Okay, a lot of people think, oh, I've done this. How do I sort this out? What am I going to do? This is going to affect things. Don't. In the bookkeeping software, every single transaction that goes through that software can easily be amended, adjusted, overridden if it needs to be. So you've always got that. And equally, with the MTD coming in and those quarterly updates, submissions, don't worry, because the wonderful thing is, in quarter one, whatever you report, let's say you make a mistake and you realise, you've submitted it now, you've made a mistake. What do I do? Right, well, you go into your software you amend the mistake, you correct it to what it should be.
Yeah.
Then the next quarter, quarter two, it's not just that second quarter's 3 months information that goes, it's year to date. So quarter two will be 6 months of your data that goes. Quarter three will be 9 months and quarter four will be 12 months. So when you're making those changes, those updates then get sent across on that next quarterly update.
Yeah.
All right. And again, what HMRC have stipulated is they don't expect in those quarterly update submissions, they do not expect the information to necessarily be 100% perfect.
Yeah.
All right. It's just based on the information you've got to hand, that's all the ins and outs that's fallen within that quarter, that should be what's reported. If things then subsequently change or get updated, or there's a missed invoice or a late payment or something, obviously put it on the system as and when, and it will obviously get mopped up in the next quarter. And then it's that reconciliation, that's more traditional tax return that's due. That's when we sort of go through things with a fine tooth comb and just make sure everything's in there that should be in there.
Yeah.
All right, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So I guess the next question really is, we're 8 months out at this point that we're recording this episode from the first phase of making tax digital for income tax, which will affect the people with turnover of £50,000 or more, so sole traders and small landlords. They will be in the first wave, so they're going to be the first people to be affected. If you're in that first phase, what steps should those people be taking now?
Fabulous. So as I said earlier, planning is key with this. You don't want to leave things to last minute. You'll panic, you'll feel pressured. And also don't forget, if you are wanting an accountant, they will be feeling the crunch. They're potentially going to have an influx of clients. So step one is to just take a breather and think, right, am I going to be doing this by myself? Or do I think I need an accountant? So that's that first sort of inner dialogue I would start. And then it's a case of, I would encourage you to then go out and find and meet some local accountants that, you've found that seem sensible. Go meet them, because you're going to work quite closely potentially with this individual. You need to make sure that you're going to get on with them. You feel you can trust them. They're going to deliver the services that you want at the price that you are comfortable at. Okay. And a good accountant should convey everything that you're getting for the price you're paying. And don't be afraid to challenge them and ask them questions. Now, they're not going to suddenly give away all the hints and tips and secrets and, everything in initial consultation. That initial consultation is they can get to know you and understand what services they think you may require, and then help start guiding you on that journey. But you are within your rights to go away, to think about it, to look at other accountants, to decide who you want to go with, if that's the way you want to go. Okay, get some advice, get a bit of guidance. And then the next thing is to start having a look at software. So if you're going through an accountant, wonderfully, your accountant will guide you through software packages. So they will help you with that process. And again, it will look at your ability, what technology you're generally comfortable using day to day, because then they will try and match up the right software to your skill set. We don't want to give a complex product if you're not that great with technology, because we know it's going to be a disaster. And to be honest, it'd probably terrify you. And we don't want that. We want something that you're comfortable using. And there are softwares aimed at different levels based on what your appetite to technology is. So they would work with you along that process. But that software is going to form a key component of this MTD. So what we would be looking at, or whether you've gone away and you've looked at software and you've decided, right, this I think is a software for me. Every single software company provides training videos. So then I would be looking at those. I'd be trying to absorb, okay, well, what are the core components of this? What should I be doing? How should I do this? And then do you know what? Start now. All right. It doesn't mean you have to stop your current bookkeeping system. So especially if you're a manual cash book at the moment, keep writing it in your cash book. Give yourself that peace of mind that everything is still going to be written down. But start using a software at the same time so you can compare. You know, it's a great way to learn to say, right, well, this is how I would normally do it in here. Okay, this is how it looks in the software. And you can start to get to grips and figure things out. And yes, you will make mistakes. But again, depending on the package you buy, all the software companies, will provide some level of support. I would, advise that if you're maybe a little bit more complicated, that's where your accountant support is really going to come into its own.
Yeah.
But there is still a level of support with bookkeeping companies as well. So, speak to them, email them. If you've had a quite slight query, you're not quite sure of something, dare I say it, go on Google and YouTube. There's video tutorials on pretty much all of these bits of software. Find something that you seem to absorb and enjoy, because we all learn things differently. But I would definitely say get stuck in, and because you're doing it as a bit of a test, it doesn't really matter if you mess it all up, because you've got to remember that the tax year that we're currently in is still going to be filed by a normal tax return by January, where are we now? January 27. Okay, because obviously we are currently in the tax year, April 25 to March 26, that has to be filed in the traditional manner by January 2027. Okay, so, keep that existing cash book. You'll do your normal tax return from that, but start using software so you can start to see how it's going to look and get yourself ready so that come April next year, it should be a lot easier to switch over to that bookkeeping software.
Yeah. And I suppose another point to make is that if you start now, almost all accounting softwares will offer a free trial period. Give it a go. If you don't like it, you're not committed. It's a 30-day or 2-month or whatever it is free trial period. Give it a go. If you don't like it, find one that's better suited, because you've got the luxury of a little bit of time still to do that, so you can swap down the line. Absolutely. And I suppose another point is that if you're already using accounting software, an important step for you is to make sure that it's compliant, because at the moment, not all of it has been approved by HMRC, has it?
Yeah, spot on. HMRC wonderfully have a list. If you can literally go on Google, HMRC approved MTD software, and it literally pops up right at the top. And they've got a wonderful list of all their approved software. So definitely worth having a little look at that list. I think all the sort of major players that most sort of household names are aware of, are generally you'd expect to see on there. But again, there are so many products out there nowadays. Do just make sure you check that list first to make sure that it's going to do what it needs to do. So yeah, absolutely right. And as you say, get started now, figure it out. Most softwares come with like 30 days notice, if that, to be honest. So don't be afraid to try a couple. And wonderfully, most of them are very reasonably priced. We're not talking, hundreds of pounds or anything like that a month. We are literally talking, pounds or maybe tens of pounds a month. Sort of in that bracket, very much depending what product you're looking at and sort of how much it can do for you. So, it's not going to break the bank to try a few of these. And you are right, most of them come with some kind of free trial period. So don't be afraid to have a little play. And also, wonderfully, most of them come with some like a demo data account, so you can really have a play. You don't necessarily want to start putting your stuff in there, but start having a play and looking where the invoices are and where the sales show up and what reports you can run, and have a little mechanism and a play, because it's demo data. You can't break it. Nothing's going to go wrong. You can literally play around with it to your heart's content, but just make sure you start to find a rhythm once you've found a product you think you're happy to continue with.
It's about anything. It's about having that disciplined work approach, and and if that's Friday morning for 2 hours, you're going to be uploading your expenses or issuing your invoices or reconciling your bank account. It's about anything. It's about being kind of organized in your approach, especially in that kind of learning phase when you're still getting used to something.
Absolutely. And I think you've wonderfully said it there. You're always best to form these habits, get into these routines with your business. Okay, I know that your customers always will throw a spanner in the works. They always do. But when it comes to the running of your business, having a routine and a habit will strengthen your business, especially your business's financials. So I cannot stress enough, to a lot of people it may feel like overkill, but to do your bookkeeping once a week, whether it's a Friday, whether it's a Monday, whether it's midweek, whatever day you want to pick a couple of hours just to do those transactions that have gone through that week, make sure that bank stuff is coming through and you're happy that everything's there. And if you stay on top of that every week, you'll be amazed how much more in tune with your financials you are, because, MTD is, yes, it's pushing us towards digital, but do you know what digital does for businesses? It can strengthen your business because of the reporting reporting. You then have access to real-time financial information so you can make more accurate business decisions, not only to help make you, the term I like to call is tax efficient. No one wants to overpay tax, thank you very much. We all have to pay it, but we want to make sure it's at the right amount and not a penny more, thank you very much. So we want to make sure we're utilising any reliefs we can in a timely manner, okay, and that's where real time helps. But also, you know, as a business, you will have a goal, you know, whether it's you know that you want this business to get you through to retirement and be able to sell that business and then retire off that. You want to get your family involved. You want it to become a family affair. You want to gift your business down to maybe younger generations in your family. You know, you've got a view, you know, you've got world domination on the mindset. You're an entrepreneur and you're thinking, right, this is where I am now, but in 5 years time, I want at least $1 million in the bank account. Whatever those goals are, this type of system and software will help you get there. I would always suggest, if you are looking at slightly more ambitious things, an accountant will be worth their weight in gold and they will help you get there. But actually the software itself can give you a lot of insights. So don't be afraid that once you're using it, to look at the other features within the software that you don't necessarily need for MTD, but there's so much reporting functionality to really help you drill down on things like how long is it taking your customers to pay you if you offer them some form of credit. That is always a massive, a black hole for clients that, I've worked with in the past. Those numbers creep up, and then obviously that's then impacting your cash flow, which is then slowing down you buying in things, and it is absolutely hindering your growth. And it shouldn't be, because those customers owe you money anyway. You know, you have to start bringing in these processes, and that software can automate a lot of things. So, that as an example, it can automate chasing reminders to get the money into your business. It's your money at the end of the day. Don't let it sit in your customers' bank accounts. It belongs in yours. It's helping your business grow and develop, so it really can help streamline your business processes overall as well. So don't forget there are benefits within all this as well.
Yeah. So have you, apart from kind of the discipline of sitting down and making sure you dedicate a specific amount of time each week to doing your, your figures, your expenses and your income and things, have you got any other tips for people on just staying on top of that generally?
I think, like I say, setting aside time is a big thing, without a shadow of a doubt. But again, it's all these habits. I keep using the word habits, but it really is an absolute mindset, because again, when you do something enough and it becomes a habit, everything is easier because you start doing it without thinking about it. So staying on top of your financials, keeping that bookkeeping software up to date and checking, not that it's just up to date and it's all there, checking that as far as you're aware it's accurate, okay? It makes a difference, all right? Staying on top of things like that will make a huge difference. And again, keep looking at your cash flow. So a lot of these slightly larger bookkeeping softwares will have reports in them like cash flow reports, things like that. In the world of business, whether you're a landlord, you're a sole trader, and whatever industry you're in, it's all the same. Cash is king, okay? If you have not got the money, you will slow growth, you will not grow, you might have a problem financially, you might not be able to then pay your staff, you then obviously lose staff, that obviously takes the business back further. There are so many repercussions, and let's not forget, if your business isn't bringing in money, you're not getting money. You need money to live. As a business owner or a landlord, you are trying to pay your bills. Whatever your goals are in the future, currently right here, right now, you might have a mortgage to pay. You've got kids that might be growing up and going to uni and very costly. You've got all these expenses. Or I dare say, you need a break and you want a holiday. We're all entitled to a breather. You need that reset in business, absolutely, to get that focus back and that drive back especially when you've had a busy period. You need money to do all this. Money absolutely makes the world go round, as corny a saying as that is. So you need to make sure you're monitoring your cash flow, you're monitoring the money, and you're tracking so that you get to a point where you almost know your financials inside and out, and that will absolutely improve your business overall.
So sort of summarising all of that, really, we've said sit back, think about where you're at, where you're capable with in terms of doing the books yourself, speak to an accountant, then start to look at possible accounting software options. Yeah. What's next in terms of your journey for preparing for Making Tax Digital? Do you, for example, have to register for Making Tax Digital, or do you automatically, once you reach the threshold, have to be complying?
Yeah. Great question. So yes, you do have to register for MTD, which sounds, especially, there's two options, because technically if you really wanted to, as much as you could play around with bookkeeping software now, if you really wanted to get a go, a lot of the software companies and accountants as well, either or, whatever route you're going, there is actually currently a trial running, so an active trial. So if you want to get a head start, you could look to get basically engaged in it now. So you could register for MTD now. But yeah, you are absolutely right. Coming up, every client that HMRC knows to be affected by MTD, you will be sent letters from HMRC. If you're already with an accountant, your accountant should be sending you letters as well. Basically telling you that obviously this is coming. It will give you links on how to register for MTD. Again, if you just search HMRC and MTD registration on Google, it will come up with the link and explain exactly the steps you need to take in order to get registered. But obviously it's a case of, as we get closer to the start date next year, it's things like that you probably want to get lined up and ready so that HMRC know. And again, off the back of that, in order for HMRC to know that you're going to be affected by this, obviously the last tax year that's just finished, so that would have been April 24 to March 25 this year, which is going to be due for self-assessment tax return due to be filed by the end of January 2026. Yeah. Okay, it's trying to get that information done now. Okay, the tax year's finished, so hopefully you should have, got all your stuff together. We know there are a lot of last minute people out there, because I see the stats of people filing in January, but top tip, if you file now, doesn't mean your tax bill is due to be paid any sooner. And a lot of people don't realise that. So you can get your information together now, get it filed so you know your tax bill now. Again, plan ahead with your cash because it really does help. Make sure you've got the financials and you know how much you've got to pay over, but you still don't have to pay it before the 31st of January 2026 if you don't want to. Yeah. Okay, so it's such a great tip. And then because HMRC then have that most recent tax year information, they can correctly assess, and that's what they're going to be assessing on as to whether you're actually going to be affected by MTD coming in next year. So as much as they will have kind of guessed based off the prior tax information you submitted, it's this one that is vitally important. So my absolute top tip is get that information in now, whether you're doing it yourself or get the information to the accountant now. Believe me, they will thank you for getting in it sooner. And then understand where you stand. And then obviously, like I said, you don't have to pay your tax any sooner. That's key.
Yeah. So you'll know whether that magic £50,000 appears.
Exactly.
If you know now, you know for definite that by next April, you've got to be good to go.
Exactly that, and again, it's just that getting that ahead of it all, making you armed with understanding exactly what's going to happen. It's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, you can avoid the last minute panic then.
Absolutely.
So you've already talked generally about how accountants can help you. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about what Tax Assist has done in terms of getting both yourselves and clients ready for Making Tax Digital.
Of course. Well, for those of you who may not know, Tax Assist is a network. So we've got wonderful Tax Assist accountants up and down throughout the UK. So I'm sure, I'm safe to say there's probably one in your local area somewhere. But wonderfully, what we've done is obviously, as accountants, we've had to get educated. So, I've been putting on with our network of accountants, we called it our MTD Roadshow. So making sure that they are all armed and ready, and we've brought along all of the major software companies that we partner with, along so that, we've all seen the software, we know how it works, we're all ready for MTD, we know exactly what, it's going to look like with our clients. a lot of our accountants have even got some of their clients already in this beta trial happening now. So they're starting to really see how it's all going to work. And they themselves wonderfully are starting to write out to their clients and tell them and educate, because education is key with something new. Because if we're not educated, we do get a bit anxious and scared about it, and we don't understand what it means for us. So our tax assist accountants are making sure they're making it as easy as possible for their clients. And again, what we're trying to do is we've got information already on our website. So you can go on the taxassist.co.uk website, and there's articles about MTD, some of the key facts, and of thresholds and dates and software and things to think about, and some top tips. And wonderfully, we are soon to be launching some client webinars. Wonderfully, you will have my lovely face on the first one, and that is going to be on the 14th of October. So we'll be shortly releasing that on our website as well, so you can register online for that. So, we want to make sure that all the information we give you, we don't want to burden you. No one needs an absolute influx of knowledge, because to be honest, you're going to forget half of it. But what we want to do is we want to break it down into little snippet webinars to make it real, give you a chance to understand what we're saying, but also ask questions. All right. And these are not just for existing clients of the network. These are for everyone. So get yourself, when you see those on the website, get signed up. Have some questions armed with you. Hopefully we'll cover some of them off in the webinar, but we want to help everyone in this process. Yes, we are an accountant, and we know that we can add value to businesses and our clients, but at the same time, we know that a lot of people out there maybe don't feel they're ready for an accountant for whatever the reason is, and that's fine. If you want to go it alone, that's not a problem, but we still want to be able to give you some hints and tips and guide you along that process, so that you don't get yourself in a bit of a pickle, because no one likes that.
Yeah. And I suppose the other thing is that if you start sort of educating yourself now, the reality is when you're running your own business, you're juggling a million things at once. You've got customers ringing you, you've got stock problems, you've got staffing issues to worry about, is the website up to date, blah, 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 blah. There's always a million things on calling on your time. Actually, if you start now, you can dip in and out and educate yourself as you go. Like you say, you've got webinars going on. There's the other podcast episodes that we're recording as part of this series that people can listen to. And if you've got questions, come to the accountant, come to Tax Assist, and you can get an answer.
Absolutely right. These, taking stuff in bite-sized chunks, figuring things one step out at a time, again, helps you create these habits that I keep twittering on about. I know I sound like a parrot, but it really is key to not only making your life easier, making sure things sink in, you're starting to get a rhythm of things. And as you say, our goal is, we want you to focus on the business. That's what you're good at. You've built this business. You've started it. You've put all your hard work into it. That's your livelihood. That's where we want you spending your time. We don't want you worrying about any of this and software and tax and this, that and the other. Because obviously, whether it's you're just using software by yourself, your software will take a lot of the headache for you. Or if you're going a step further and using an accountant as well, obviously they will take a lot of the stress away for you, because we want to encourage and help you to make sure you are using all of your skills on the business, which is what you're good at, and then leaving the tax and helping you along the way, taking the stress out and giving you absolute advice to help you hit your goals. That's the hard legwork we do. We do tax day in, day out. We use bookkeeping software day in, day out. All of this is second nature to us. So just as much as you might be a fantastic plumber, I can tell you now, I can't plumb a toilet or a boiler to save my life. I wouldn't dare touch it. I would end up with a flooded house. But what I can do is I can do sets of accounts, I can do tax, I can help you with any business advice. So again, it's making sure we're utilising our strengths in the relationship as well. But again, software is very good at helping you along that journey as well.
Yes. So there's tons of great advice in there, Samantha. If it's at all possible, do you think you can boil that down into the 3 steps that people need to take now so that they're ready should they come into the first wave in April 2026?
Yeah, I think it's key on understanding and think about, do you want an accountant or not? And if so, go start reaching out to some and start meeting some, because I think that's going to be key, getting early. Second is start thinking about your appetite to technology. Are you thinking you want someone else to do it all? Or are you thinking, actually, I think I'm okay using a bookkeeping software, but then I just need to find the right one. Okay. And then thirdly is have a go. Start playing around with the software. Obviously you'll be getting used to, if you are working with a new accountant, you'll be getting used to them. So that takes a bit of time, getting used to a new bit of software, but also, looking up on some of these podcasts that we just talked about, or these client webinars that Taxist is doing, all these different things to educate yourselves, and then having a go, starting to use this software, starting to get in a bit of the rhythm and start having a play, comparing how you're doing your current bookkeeping to potentially using some new technology and how that's going to work, because that education piece is absolutely needed to get ahead of the game, so that when it kicks in, you've got all your ducks lined up in a nice little row and they're ready to set sail.
It's all easy breezy from that point onwards.
Exactly, that's what we love.
Brilliant. Finally, can you tell our listeners where they can find you online and where they can find Tax Assist, please?
Absolutely. So we've got an amazing website, www.taxassist.co.uk. If you go on that, there's loads of, like I said, there's information, there's little Q&A section, there's articles helping and guiding you in certain topics, MTD being one, client webinars, etc. But wonderfully, we've got a centralised number, and you can phone up, and then our guys here will put you in touch with your local Tax Assist accountant, which is great. And then you'll be then put through, and the meeting will be set up. And again, we offer a free initial consultation for all potential clients looking to come visit us and meet us. We want to make sure that, we can then spend that time getting to know you, your business. We will then look to tailor services for what you need. We're very fully transparent with our pricing. There's nothing hidden, so we will agree fixed fee pricing. We operate it through lovely direct debit systems, so that actually you're not having massive great accountancy bills. No one likes that. You can spread the cost, which is amazing. But again, they can discuss the level that you may need, especially in relation to MTD, because they want to work with you. They're not trying to fight against you. If you want to do more yourself, that's absolutely fine. We'll just handhold you along the way. So again, you spend more time focusing on your business than you do worrying about the ins and outs of MTD. So we can do all of that. Or equally, you can go on Google and simply search, find my local Tax Assist accountant, and Google will wonderfully find them up. We've got client reviews on every single location in the UK, so you can get a feel for what existing clients think of us. We like to be transparent. We want you to see the sort of levels of service and what our current clients think of us. But yeah, do research, do look, at Tax Assist accountants. Obviously, I'm very biased and I know that we deliver a good standard, but don't be afraid to look at other local accountants as well. So you can really understand what each accountant offers. But I will warn you, not every accountant is fully on board and up to date with MTD as they probably should be. So I would really make sure you sit down with them. This is why I would encourage you to do it sooner rather than later. Get talking to them, and you will soon get a feel for whether they are on top of everything and they can really make this transition easier compared to those that maybe are a little bit, they're not really seem to be talking about this. They don't really understand the software. They're not really guiding me here. Okay, then there might be a few little red flags that you probably need to find another local accountant. So yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a great chat. Loads of great tips and advice there. And like I say, we'll add links to the Tax Assist website in the summary notes that come with this. But for now, thank you so much. It's been great talking to you, Samantha.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I hope that everyone listening has answered a few of those must need to know questions for you. But
and alleviated some of the concern that people have.
Absolutely. It really doesn't have to be something that stresses you out or that you worry about. Change is always going to bring a little bit of anxiousness, and I get that. But again, start with baby steps. Start with those 3 key things that I mentioned earlier, and just start to walk with it very slowly, and you'll be amazed where by doing it over the next sort of 6 to 8 months, you'll be in a much happier place come next year. And I promise you, it won't be as bad as it seems now.
There you have. There's the quote to wrap it up.
Mm-hmm. Lovely.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Care.
We all know that when change happens, it can be unsettling and it can cause worry or stress. Hopefully Samantha's been able to reassure you that by getting prepared now, the transition to making tax digital for income tax needn't be something you have to worry about. Her top tips were: consider how much work you're prepared to do yourself. Ask yourself how confident you are about using accounting software. Start to look around for an accounting package if you haven't already got one, and utilise some of the free trials and the online resources that are out there to help you find a package that works for you. And finally, speak to an accountant. They can advise you on what you need to do to be ready, and they can help you get a support package in place that meets your needs. Making tax digital is coming, and you will have to make some changes to how you keep your financial records and how you report that information to HMRC. And even if you're not affected in April 2026, it's very likely that you'll come under the scope of making tax digital at some point sooner or later. You can find Tax Assist accountants at www.taxassist.co.uk, and we'll share links to Tax Assist and related donut content in the summary notes. You can also learn more about how Tax Assist friendly local accountants can help you get ready for making tax digital. You'll find the summary notes at www.startyourownbusinesspodcast.co.uk. If you've enjoyed the show, please hit follow. It makes sure you're notified about other episodes as soon as they drop. All that remains is to thank Samantha for her time today. Until next time, all the best.
Are you a sole trader or landlord with combined income over £50,000? Big changes are coming your way. From the 6th of April 2026, making tax digital for income tax becomes mandatory, and getting prepared now is key. That's where Tax Assist accountants come in. They specialise in helping small businesses and landlords like you make the switch smoothly and stress-free. With face-to-face personalised advice, Tax Assist will guide you every step of the way, helping you understand exactly what MTD means for you and your business. They'll also provide MTD-ready software to help digitise your records, making it easy to stay compliant. And with a range of affordable packages tailored to your needs, you can choose the level of support that's right for you. Whether you want full management, a helping hand, or prefer to stay in full control. You can get free advice on MTD and how it may impact you by signing up to Tax Assist's client webinar. You'll receive expert guidance on how to digitise your records and meet your obligations, as well as the opportunity to ask any burning questions. Register for your free webinar place by visiting taxassist.co.uk/resources/news/MTD webinar today.